I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mr. Walsh, would you lead us in a flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sunshine Law Statement, all requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been met for this meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Oradell. Notice of this meeting was filed with the Record and Town News, and all persons requesting such notice. Mr. Darian, would you read the mission statement?
The Oradell Public School District is dedicated to the ongoing pursuit of educational excellence through the comprehensive, innovative curriculum and instruction. The district is committed to providing opportunities for social, emotional, and academic discovery to foster curiosity, courage, and character. Our goal is to prepare our students to become lifelong learners who are self-directed, resilient, productive, responsible citizens.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mrs. Acosta? Mrs. Negum? Mrs. Downey? Mr. Griffin?
Here.
Mrs. Norian?
Here.
Mrs. Walker? Mr. Walsh?
Here,
Mr. Darian?
Here.
Mrs. Nichols?
Here, open to the public for agenda items only? Or one public? Moving forward, Mrs. Norian passed out to you this evening this resolution that school board is asking us to pass. I had received it in the Bergen County President's email also. We can either vote on it tonight at the end of the meeting in old or new business, or you can take it home and look into it. It's about how the state, well, it's about the mentoring in the state and how we support it, but we don't want to pay for it, right?
Right,
What is-
right. It's essentially just saying that our district supports mentoring because mentoring's good for students.
is there a time limit to get back?
There's not a time limit on it. We're looking for a critical mass of districts to adopt the resolution. And then at that point, then we meet with the legislators to discuss the issue and go forward from there.
If I remember correctly, mentoring is non-academic. It's not necessarily educational. It's just,
Not necessarily, right?
yeah. And so this would be like community leaders joining classes on field trips and being there for students for bonding moments and stuff like that.
It might be. I know that Ridgefield Park has a very strong mentoring program, so it might be something that we could get the information from them on what exactly the kinds of things that they do and find out how it would relate to our students here.
It's kind of like Mr. Miyagi.
They're
and-
kind of like being friends with.
Right, yeah.
So this is not something we have to adopt necessarily. This is just if schools want to adopt this mentoring program, the districts are asking for funding to sustain it.
No, we're merely adopting support of mentoring students. That's it.
Right, which we do not have to do. Mr. Walsh?
Is this only for high school?
No, it's for all students. We're saying that all students benefit. It's just that it's measurable in high school. We know that our students from the get-go, if they've got a particular teacher that works well with them, or if they've got somebody who comes into the classroom that befriends them, that and mentors them essentially, looks out for them, that makes their life that much better. It presents all kinds of positive things going forward, and that's the kind of thing that they're looking to promote.
Mrs. Walker?
So the first whereas states about raising high school rates, high school graduation rates and so on. So that would be more academic, I would think. But
No, what they're saying is that if people feel good, if there's a mentoring program that they've been involved in, that down the road, that creates higher high school graduation rates. That's really what they're saying.
It's just such a broad.
Yeah.
It's very broad. And then how do you implement this mentoring? Which I think I had read someplace, the start of mentoring where the larger Abbott districts, I don't know if they call them Abbott anymore, will be getting funds to pay teachers to be mentors. They're not saying what kind of mentors.
So we can take
Yeah.
this up under new business at the end of the meeting, we can decide, but I just wanted to present it since Mrs. Norian brought it this evening. Do you want to make a comment? You sure? Okay, so we'll think about it during the meeting. If we want to vote on it tonight, we want to vote on it next time, and we can have more further discussion at the end of the meeting. And we will move to the superintendent's report.
Good evening. I'd like to begin today by sharing some of our students' recent successes. Both of our Division I Odyssey of the Mind team, composed of 4th and 5th grade students, and our Division II team, comprised of 6th grade students, competed at the Skyland Regional Tournament this month. Both teams performed beautifully and qualified for the state tournament in April. The Odyssey program is based on accepting a mindset of continuous improvement. Therefore, when I spoke to the team a day or two after, you think that they would be reveling in their success. Instead, they were telling me everything they would make better before states. They have an opportunity to speak to the judges at the end of their event, and the judges do also provide them feedback, and they can see their scores. So if you see any of them right now, they will immediately start to tell you which costume they're changing, which set they're changing, and what they have to do a little bit better. I'm looking forward to the state tournament, and I wish both teams and their coach, Ms. Sham, good luck. Revision of thought and process was also witnessed in our 6th grade Shark Tank and Steam Tank projects. All students in 6th grade will compete in our inter-school Shark Tank competition at the end of the year. However, 13 of those teams qualified for the New Jersey School Board's regional competition, which is being held virtually over the next several weeks. Our teams competed last week. However, we won't know yet how they did, although we did get a little inside feedback that we should expect at least one team to qualify for the state tournament. I was able to watch the team share their invention, sell their pitch, and converse with the judges. It was a really cool experience to see students take feedback and immediately start to, in front of the judges, talk about what else they could do to improve their projects. It was exciting that several teams will have the experience to talk to an actual attorney who volunteers their time with New Jersey school boards about how non-disclosure agreements work for the products they created. They also learned and were given advice about what other corporations and stores to go to that might be interested in their product. And I think that's the part. We also saw the STEAM part, the invention part, but the actual business side, and that there were people with that experience on the judges panel to give them feedback was pretty impressive to watch. I watched one group of 5 young men who you might not see as the most passionate, excited learners all the time, but they have created something that they're one of the ones that will get to speak to an attorney about a non-disclosure agreement for their invention. And then I watched a group of young women who immediately, as soon as the judges gave them feedback, turned to each other and started talking as a team about what was next and how they could take that feedback to improve their project. And it's one of the things the judges complimented the group on. So we've spoken a lot this year about engagement, but engagement doesn't just happen with hands-on learning in the STEM lab. It happens when our students are given choice and voice in their learning. For example, when we teach persuasive writing, we want our students to find issues they have passion for. So President Nichols often shares the correspondence she receives, so I thought I'd share with you some of the correspondence I received yesterday. Dear Ms. Bozius, this is my 5th year at Oradell Public School. Before that, I went to Lindgren Preschool and camp for 3 years. To date, I have been a student for 8 years. I have played on playgrounds here in New Jersey and in other countries like Australia, London, and Paris. I have a lot of experience on playgrounds, and I feel strongly about having new equipment for the playground at Oradell Public School. He goes on to quote some important research about the 28 reasons why play benefits emotional health and development. So I have a little bit of homework, but I enjoyed the fact that he included personal narrative about when he went to the playground in Paris and how that helped him to connect with others. I received another letter. Dear Ms. Bozius, this is my 5th year being taught at Oradell Public School. I believe I speak for the whole school when I say that I love specials. I mean, who wouldn't? They're fun, entertaining, and most of all, they spark creativity in all of us. Although there is one problem that has become apparent to me with our specials. We barely have any time for them. This is why I would like to have longer special periods. I enjoyed his closure when he said, I believe this is enough evidence to prove that students would both relish and benefit from longer specials. I understand that longer specials may change the entire scheduling of a regular school day, but specials are a great way to express yourself while preparing for a future career path. Clearly, the pros outweigh the cons. I'm available to discuss at your earliest convenience. Thank you for your time and consideration. Yeah, he really. Additionally, your purpose as the superintendent of Oradell Public School is to give the students exactly what they need to have the best education possible. I think I've been using that phrase a little too much with the kids. And finally, normally when I get letters like this, they're always about what would benefit the student. So this one stood out, and I hope Mr. Butcher is listening because he may bring this to the next negotiations. Dear Ms. Bozius, this is now my 5th year at Oradell Public School, so I know a lot about people. I know what they do, I know how they work, I know how much they work or play. Please take into consideration what I have to say. The custodians work a lot. They should be paid a lot. They need a pay raise, please. He goes on to talk about the custodians mopping the disgusting bathroom floors and all of that. It's the first time, though, that I also thought, what a way to bring compassion into it, because this isn't going to benefit that child at all. So I have a lot of homework, because these are just 3 of many letters that I now need to respond to. But that's also passion. When we give children the choice of what they read, the choice of what they can write about, they are more engaged. And when I read them, I heard them. And that's engaged writing. So our students are not the only ones who have been busy lately. Members of our teaching staff and administration have been spending time with their counterparts in River Edge over the past few months, reviewing possible new math resources for implementation during the 24-25 school year. The state will be coming out with new math standards this spring. So as we rewrite our curriculum to ensure alignment to those standards, it makes sense to also identify the best resource. One area where we know the state will be adding emphasis is on data analysis. We know that we'll need a resource that is no longer 1 unit at the end of the year. Identified teachers are now trying out the new resources. They're not piloting full units. They're taking a lesson from each resource to see how usable is it, how do their students respond to it, and that's part of the conversation we're having amongst ourselves as the staff and also amongst our counterparts in River Edge. Spring is right around the corner, and OPS shows no signs of slowing down. Musical rehearsals are well underway. Mrs. Schlesinger is soliciting volunteers, in case anyone's available, to help prepare for the art show. Representatives from the middle school were here today to talk to our 6th graders, and the term spring fling is definitely in the air. Because of all this, one area you will see us speaking about a lot to students and staff is grit. We need to have the tenacity and perseverance to finish strong, because I suddenly realized that when I skated, one of my favorite performances was, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And that's really what we're going to be talking to our staff and our students too, because sometimes when spring happens, it feels like it's all over, but it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mr. Barmora?
Okay, good evening, everybody. Tonight, I'm going to be presenting on the 23-24 school year tentative budget. So like I said, tonight's budget is going to be on the tentative, tonight's presentation is going to be on the tentative budget. We present the budget 2 times. Once is the tentative budget, and then the last one is the final budget in April. This is just going to be a high-level review of the budget, and it can change. So when we do our final budget presentation in April, there could be slight changes, and they will be discussed in a public meeting. So like I said, it's going to be a high-level review of the tentative budget tonight. So we'll just go over what the budget process is, what our revenues are, our estimated expenditures. We'll go over what tonight's tentative budget resolution is, and then go for the next steps after tonight. So the budget process actually begins officially in October. We approved a budget calendar at our October board meeting, and then it goes out to all of the administrators and different stakeholders. At that point, we get feedback. Teachers and staff go to their principals or supervisors, and then they come to the superintendent, buildings and grounds supervisor, and myself. And then we also have help from the finance committee. During this whole time, we're tweaking and trying to balance the budget, which ends up here tonight at the tentative budget. After tonight, we'll be submitting this to the county for review, and after the county reviews it and approves it, then we can advertise for the final budget. And the final budget just has to be presented during a specific time frame. So with estimated revenues, we do make a couple assumptions up front as far as where we want to be with our tax levy, where we want to be with our state aid numbers. And then also we try to identify other sources of revenue. Some of those revenues could come in the form of bank cap, enrollment adjustments, or healthcare adjustments. As far as the expenditures, we look to the salaries first, calculate all the salaries of all the staff, salaries and benefits. That gives us the majority of the budget. And then also we look at different trends that are going to affect the budget, such as the enrollment trends, cost history, economic issues. Most recently, it's been inflation and health benefits. And also we try to solicit quotes from vendors to try to lock in prices now for the 23-24 school year, so we have a real number of what we're going to be working with. And like I said, as this is all going on, we're balancing the budget, going back and forth, trying to make sure we're in balance with everything. We use the district and the board goals as a guide as to what we want to prioritize and what we want to keep, what we might have to take out of the budget, and then we just keep reviewing, and making revisions. So with the 23-24 school year budget, as you can see, the majority of the budget is funded by the tax levy, the local tax levy there. So you'll see it's about 89% of the budget does come from the tax levy. One of the things to note for this year is our state aid actually increased again. I'm not sure the exact consecutive year, but it's been a couple years now in a row that we have seen an increase in state aid. That comes in at our second largest funding source at about 6.9%. So our total operating budget's $14.4 million. So now on the expenditure side, you'll see on the top line, there's our $14.4 million. And also what we're going to be doing in the 23-24 school year is we're going to be making withdrawals from our reserve accounts. And these accounts act as savings accounts for the school district. As you can see, withdrawal from capital reserve is going to be $330,000, and our withdrawal from maintenance reserve is going to be $100,000. And here's a breakdown of what the expenditures look like from the budget. Like I said, you can see here, it's pretty obvious that salaries and benefits take up the majority of the budget at about 75%. So what's left over is we look at buildings and grounds at about 5%. We have other purchase services, which include leases or equipment rentals or web hosting, travel for staff, workshops and conferences, and transportation for our students. For professional and technical services, we have different instructional services that we pay for. We pay for Bergen Tech, who supplies us with a IT person and network support. Hi, Rami. And also, this includes various programs and software such as Linkit, our student information system real-time, our legal, audit, and architect's fees. And then you can see, as far as supplies, it's really a small amount coming in about $2 million, and miscellaneous is different dues for professional associations for the staff.
Can you just repeat what was in purchase services?
So other purchase services include leases, so equipment leases for copy machines or for our postage machines, web hosting, travel reimbursements for our staff, also the cost of workshops or consultants for our staff, and transportation services for our student. We outsource our transportation with Region 5. They take care of all of our transportation.
Doesn't this line also include all our OTPT that we go out for, purchase services? No?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of special ed costs in this
Yes.
line, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we have our OTPT.
That's outsourcing OT
Right.
and PT. Yeah,
Right.
our in-house is
What
just in with the
other purchase
salary.
services do we have like that?
We have OT, PT, speech. We have one-to-one aids.
Because all of our
actually,
aides,
Out of district,
yeah,
out of
all of our
district.
aides in this line, right? Out of district? Okay.
So as I mentioned, we're going to be making a withdrawal from our capital reserve account. One of the major projects is this summer, we're going to be renovating 4 of our staircases. So as you can see, they're in desperate need of repair. So that's a project that's scheduled for the summer of 2023, this upcoming summer, along with exterior land and different site improvements. So this is the tentative budget resolution that we'll be voting on tonight. As you can see, the general fund's listed there. Special revenue fund is all of donations or any other kind of federal grant money that we receive, such as ESSA grants, they're title grants, or IDA grants, and debt service is in there too. So there's a little note on the bottom there. So that also includes the $141,000 deposit that we put into capital reserve, and then our withdrawals from capital reserve of $330,000 and maintenance reserve of $100,000. One thing to note that I didn't mention before is the capital reserve and maintenance reserve, that's no tax impact. That just comes from our own savings. So as far as the total tax levy for this year, it's general fund at $12.8 million, and then debt service at $450,000. One thing to note with debt service is next year is going to be our last year with debt service, so it'll fall off and will be fully paid. I believe that was debt service from 2012. So the next steps are tonight, we're looking at the tentative budget. So we're going to be approving the resolution tonight. Then we'll be submitting the budget electronically through the NJDOE software, submitting different documents to the county. And then once we get approval, we'll advertise in the newspaper. And then 4 days after the advertisement, we can present the final budget, which we're projecting should be around April 26th.
What's the deadline for the budget?
I'd have to double check. It's May 4th, I think. So,
'Cause we don't have a meeting that night, so we'd have to change it to this night.
yeah.
So if we don't, we'll be ready a week before, like,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Yep. So that's it for the tentative budget. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
What was last year's budget?
2% less.
Yeah, the tax levy was approximately 2.6 million.
Mrs. Walker?
So, John, the withdrawal from the capital reserves, 330,000 this year. Is there a reason we're taking, I know we're going to do the stairs, and I know they're desperately needed, but is there requirements on time-wise as to when we take it or how much we take it, and how much total is in the capital reserve?
So there are specific requirements when it comes to capital reserve. It has to be for capital projects, so it has to be major projects, something like renovating a staircase. HVAC, yeah, if we do brand new HVAC, that would be included in capital reserve. You can only do it if it's in your long-range facility plan too. So we work with our architect to make sure that the long-range facility plan is updated and includes as many projects as possible in there so that we have the most flexibility on what we want to choose to do. Your other question was about how much we have currently. So after this, it's $1.3 million. That's left. Right now, we had money taken out for the auditorium, so we're still in the midst of finishing up the auditorium project here, and any of that leftover money from the auditorium will go back into the capital reserve account, so that number will go up.
And we don't have to submit any of the plans of what we're going to do with that money to the county or the state.
No, not for these.
Has any of this money that's been here on these pages been from COVID money or that the state has been giving out so generously to many districts?
Well, over the last couple of years, we have ended up with a large bit of surplus, so we've made sure to try to max out our reserve account. So for instance, our maintenance reserve right now, it's at the maximum allowable amount. The capital reserve also, we focused a lot of money to increase our capital reserve, hence why we're looking to make do some capital projects now.
So looks like we're very sound in
Yes.
budget here.
Mhm.
We can have 330,000 and still $1 million something left in our pocket.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Nobody else? Okay. All right. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marmara. Good job on the budget.
Yeah, nice job, John.
Okay, moving forward, we'll have review of February 15th minutes. Any questions or comments, please email Mr. Marmara, and we'll move to the approval of January 18th. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of January 18th.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Walker. Any questions? Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta? Mrs. Negum?
Yes.
Mrs. Downey? Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yeah.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes, moving to committee reports. Mr. Darian, would you take administrative items?
Yes, I'd like to introduce items A1, approval of the Comprehensive Equity Plan Statement of Assurance for 23-24. Is that the right one?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? Ms. Bozius, can you remind us update us what this is every year that we vote on?
It just says that we're meeting all the requirements with regards to English language learners and making sure that all of our policies show diverse equity. The truth is the state is going to have a new requirement. I think they're not ready. So really, all of a sudden, we just suddenly got a email from the state saying, just do a statement of assurance for one more year and we will give you all the new plans moving forward. So I expect that we will have an entirely new comprehensive equity plan for the next school year after that. The good news for us is it will be after we go through CUSAC.
We submit this every year, right? Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm just one. Am I on? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if, this new equity plan is going to be any significant changes, and if so, I'd just like to, to know about it.
Of course. I mean, truthfully, it's less of a plan and more of a checklist.
Yeah.
It says that we have everything that's required on the checklist, but when it changes, I will make sure that the board has a full copy of the checklist.
Any other questions? Mrs. Negum?
Yeah, any timelines on when the change is expected?
I think this is a little bit like the memorandum of agreement with the police. We were supposed to have a brand-new one this year, and they promised it to us, and we were told the same thing last year when we got an extension on the statement of assurance. Something is lagging in the state, and I don't know if it's agreement or if it's approval or what, but we haven't even seen a draft of what that will look like yet.
Okay, thank you.
Call the question?
Mrs. Acosta? Mrs. Needham?
Yes.
Mrs. Downing? Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker? Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. Buildings and grounds, Mr. Darian?
Yes, for buildings and grounds, we've been meeting a lot lately. We met this afternoon. Was it? Yeah, in the afternoon. There's a lot of things going on. We're mostly concerned with, stacking up the projects for this summer. And, that really needs to get everything locked down pretty soon in order for that to happen. So, we had a lot of discussions, regarding colors and materials and, whether we should be shifting, priorities and focuses and so on and so forth. And you'll get an update in our next board meeting on some of the items. Nothing major, just a lot of little stuff. So, and then we have tonight item B1 for facility use.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions?
I have a question.
Mr. Darian?
So for Oradell Little League, they're using our field. This comes up, quite often. I'm just curious there's an asterisk that says payment for field maintenance will offset fee. So this fee is, pardon me? Yeah, I know we normally do it. I forgot, though, what it means.
Do we normally offset our fees with their payment
Yes.
every year?
Yes, and
Every
if they end up with fees that are less than what our fees are, they pay us the difference.
So just explain it to me, because I don't remember. The field maintenance will offset the fee. Is that their field maintenance? The expenses that they pay to maintain the field?
Yeah, so it's expenses that they incur. What they'll do is they'll submit a invoice for the services that they pay for.
Like what?
It's just an invoice from whatever company that they use. Usually it's relining of the fields, additional dirt on the fields or clay on the fields.
And if they don't do anything, I'm just playing, devil's advocate. So if they don't do anything to the field, they don't incur any costs, then they're going to have to pay the fee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Even going way back, it was offset against our fees? Always?
As long as I've been here, yeah.
Way back. When we started like when we did the water project? I don't think it was offset off our fees.
Well, we've done some work with the fields over the years. So the things that did not require refreshing the field to play softball. So those things we didn't ask for money on. Like we put in sprinklers, we enhanced the levelness of the field by adding dirt and then sod or planting grass. We painted the backstop. We did a bunch of stuff like that. We didn't ask for money. But when it comes to wear and tear and, rounding second base and sliding in the home, all those things cause some, a little bit of wear. And when it comes to that, I think that's where we look for. And, we're hoping that every year they spend some money, making it nice, not just grading it and, saying it's good enough. You know what I mean? It should be in a nice shape.
Any other questions? Call the question?
Mrs. Acosta? Mrs. Needham?
Yes.
Mrs. Downing? Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker? Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes, curriculum. Mrs. Norian is not the chairperson?
No, I'm not.
It's Mrs. Needham. Mrs. Needham, any report?
I think we're scheduled to meet next week, so we should have further updates coming up in the next meeting.
You want to
Yeah,
Move your motion?
should I present the
Yep.
item C1 here?
Yep.
May I request a motion to approve item C1?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Norian. Any questions?
I don't have a C1.
That's what was in your, it was what was in your.
He has a red, no, turn the. There. Is it?
Yeah, it should be in there.
I don't know why his agenda. Yeah, I know. Where?
Turn it over, turn it over.
Oh,
Turn it.
no.
That has red, so we're C.
It's a different red. Okay. I'm not going to
Can I
hold
see
the
it?
meeting up.
Is it in your, is it in your file or no?
We have a,
No.
we have a conspiracy. We got to get to the bottom of it. Is that the February one?
Unless I put the wrong one away.
Maybe.
What's the date on it?
Today.
Oh,
Today's
is it?
date.
But is it the tentative or is it the?
Wow. No, this is the tentative one.
That's the tentative.
Here you go.
Hold it, hold it.
Oh, that's from your.
That's his tentative,
Buried it.
the tentative one. It has red in it.
He put the wrong one away.
Okay, we
right.
found it.
Sorry,
Any other questions?
we get too many agendas.
Any other questions? Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta? Mrs. Negum?
Yes.
Mrs. Downing?
Yeah.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yeah.
Mrs. Walker?
Yeah.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes,
Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes, finance, Mr. Griffin.
Huge thank you to the staff and Mr. Memora specifically for the amazing work on the budget. The committee was there. We had multiple meetings on it. You did a wonderful job, so thank you, thank you, thank you. With that being said, I know he already went through the details. It sounds like no one had any questions. And with that, I would like to make a motion to pass D1 through D9.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? Call the question?
Mrs. Acosta? Mrs. Negum?
Yes.
Mrs. Downing?
Yeah.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yeah.
Mrs. Walker? Mr. Walsh?
Yes,
Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes, personnel, no, delegate report, Mr. Walsh.
I have nothing to report.
Any meetings coming up?
There's a delegates assembly in May.
Okay. So to
I
get your
have it.
expenses on before then? Have to get your expenses on before then?
Yes,
Okay. Personnel, Mrs. Walker.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to present F1.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Second by Mrs. Norian. Any questions? Call the question?
Mrs. Acosta? Mrs. Negum?
Yes.
Mrs. Downing?
Yeah.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yeah,
Mr. Walsh?
yes.
Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. Moving on, can we remove the word none after the next three
Oh.
reports? Policy, Mrs. Norian?
Yes, we've been working, trying to get our meeting set up. We have yet to do that, but we are close, so.
Can we find out what we need to do? Let's do it right now, actually find out if we can do one fast. We need to do HIB. And what type of a change is that? Is it a big change?
It's a
or
legal change, and
Is it quick?
I have it ready to go.
It's like a one sentence that the
It's
state added?
It's
Three
three
paragraphs?
paragraphs in one section and one paragraph in another section. Both were written by Mr. Merlino.
And then what,
We need to change
The residents' problem.
students at risk of harm to self and others. It is adding one word, so it doesn't say principal, it says principal or designee.
and that
So
came from the state?
That actually came from our,
Okay.
you may have heard that our protocol and our policy didn't match
Okay.
with Dr. Ansel. So we're just making sure they match. And then I know you wanted to do the residency policy.
Okay, so the two we have to move on first is HIB, and
Because I do need to send HIB to the county as soon as it's revised.
is there a deadline?
Not really, I'd like to make sure it's done by the end of the year, though.
So technically, we could probably do HIB and students at risk over email, possibly. If it's 3 paragraphs we're going to add, do you want to think about that so we can get those moving? Because you're not here next week, right? Next week is not good for you.
I'm here. The problem is that I'm having surgeries, so,
Oh, yeah, you're not able to meet next week, so
well, I could meet the early part of the week.
we're doing curriculum on Monday night. Mrs. Downey, are you available nights next week at all? Mrs. Downey?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Check your calendar.
Not Monday, but Tuesday I could do after 7:30.
Tuesday and Wednesday are definitely out for you, right, Mrs.
No,
Norton?
Tuesday and Wednesday are fine, if
they are?
they're evening. It's Thursday,
Okay. Wednesday you can make? After, what time? After?
5.
After 5 o'clock you can make Wednesday. Mr. Walsh, can you make next Wednesday after 5 o'clock?
Sure.
What's the date? 22nd? Something happening? Okay. Do we want to set it for 5 o'clock and we can meet here? Does that work?
it's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wednesday,
So,
Mrs. Walker?
just to clarify, maybe my hearing, the policy committee is going to be revisiting and finalizing the policy on residents, that whole
Yes,
issue?
we're going to go over it, yeah.
Okay, because I had a few thoughts on that.
Oh, yeah.
too. So
Send them
we'll be
over.
discussing it as a board.
Yeah, and send them over to Mrs. Norian and myself and Ms. Bozios. Email
Okay.
us before we even meet.
yeah, so
And
we
then
can
everyone's going to
look
get
at
the
them.
policy
Yeah.
with the changes, and then we can keep revising and revising. But if anyone has any,
If you have
because of all the
input,
issues we've been dealing with
let's
this
see
year,
if
if you have
we
any
can get it in
issues,
at the beginning.
email Mrs. Norian, myself, and Ms. Bozios.
Will do.
So I have a question. So the changes to the HIB policy, are they like significant? Do I have to be concerned about it? I mean, I heard some rumblings from other school districts where the board was overturning a ton
Well,
of findings. Is it related to this or is
One
not?
of, there's 2 specific things. One of them is not a concern for us. Some districts, when the law was changed in 2018, gave the principal the power to decide whether to investigate or not. Our policy does not allow that. The new law states that if you were a district that the principal had that deciding power, you would need to notify the Board of Education every time you didn't investigate. But since we don't allow the principal that right, that's not a change we have to make. What we do need to make is there are some new rules with regards to if there are multiple cases of HIB, there are some new rules with regards to whether or not in the past, the HIB did not go in the student's record, and now it does.
Really?
Yes, and there's some notification of who needs to be notified if there's multiple cases. It's not something I think is going to be something we need to be concerned about. We typically have 5 HIB investigations a year. One is founded. We don't have multiple.
Yeah.
We've never in the past had the same perpetrator multiple times.
So on a school record, what does that mean?
It means that right now, like when we have an HIB, it doesn't actually go in, it didn't go in your cumulative record, that would go to Riverdale.
Oh, so
Now it
something that goes to
does.
Riverdale, okay. Because
Yeah.
I was looking at my records from middle school and elementary school the other day, and it was interesting, all
And you're going
hand,
to share that with us?
it was all handwritten. No, I
Kick them
won't.
off the board.
It was all handwritten, and not once did it, over a pint. Yes, I'd love to talk about it.
Pizza.
I was just curious, what do we talk about when we talk about records? And yeah, okay.
So it'll probably be out for first reading for the next meeting, so everyone will see it.
Yeah.
So it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, so that's good. Public relations, Mrs. Acosta.
I have nothing to report.
And nothing to report on COVID task force, right, Mr. Griffin? Okay. Open to the public.
On anything?
We're happy you're here. We're so happy when somebody comes, so keep coming. Okay, we'll move into old business and new business. I have three, so I guess I'll go. For the budget, sometimes in the fall, we say, if you want to see anything in the budget, email the finance committee. I don't think we did it this year, so there's still time. If there's anything that you wanted to see specifically in the budget, email Mr. Marmara, Sposios, myself, and Mr. Griffin. And we'll make Mr. Marmara cut a line to get it in. But if you had something you really wanted to see in the budget next year, please do that. When are we going into CUSAC?
Next year is our CUSAC year, so they will look back on this year.
When are they coming, though?
We don't know yet.
Did you form a committee yet?
No, because we haven't been given that
Okay.
big packet of information from the county.
Okay,
So
because a
we've-
board member goes
yes.
on, so, okay, I just want to make sure, so you'll let us know when? And then I guess we can discuss this resolution now. Do we want to vote on it tonight, or do we want to bring it back next time?
I have a lot of questions, and I don't think, the questions are for us. I'm going to do some research, so if we could maybe, table this to our next meeting, that would be great. If not, I don't mind voting.
Can I ask what kind of questions? 'Cause
Yeah, so I think I got a good clarification on, what they define as mentoring. It's just that, how is this going to be implemented, right? I have a lot of
it's not-
questions.
but saying that we approve of mentoring, not that we're going to put a mentoring program in place.
Yeah, but I still have concerns, right? I'm not going to just blanketly give an endorsement of something not knowing how it's going to be implemented. So I'm all for tax reform, right? But I want to know how's it going to be implemented before I endorse it, right? So
You're in the wrong town.
it could go either way, right? It could be reducing capital gains. So, Mr. Griffin.
Yeah, no, I would just say, if we are going to adopt something like this, we have to be okay with these kind of documents, these resolutions are not going to get into the details. So if we're okay with doing these types of things, this is just, from my understanding, something that is going to be pushing Murphy and the administration to say, hey, look, there's a lot of schools out there that believe in mentoring. There's a lot of schools that think this should be sustainably funded. After that happens, there's going to be a lot of devil in the details, like you're saying, but this won't mean one way or the other. And this may mean that you don't want to go either way. I would say, from my perspective, this looks like a fine thing for us to say is good. There's nothing in it that concerns me. I would be fine either way, whether we voted on it tonight or not. So,
The other issue is funding, because when the state is going to fund this, they're going to take it from somewhere else. And if we're not going to be a district that's going to use it, there'll be other districts that are going to use it, rely on it heavily. So I don't know if we may pay the price for other districts that need heavy mentoring, where we don't really need mentoring here. We have a guy that says we have people to deal with things, though we may be paying a price a different way in Oradell.
I think that's what I was referring to when I said I had read about this mentoring program and the fact, and now I'm not sure it's the same thing because this is very open-ended, but that the state was affording those districts, now whether it's every district gets a certain amount of money to use to hire these mentors, whether they're during the day after school, it didn't say. So it's very open-ended, and I agree with Jeremy. I don't think it's going to get us in any trouble, but what is it?
I'm okay waiting. I think we're going to meet in like 2 weeks anyway, so it's not going to make a difference. They're all going to the state this year, so I think we're okay if people
I
are
think we're okay,
uncomfortable.
but I think that you're looking for more in it than there is in it. That's all.
Yes and no. Because I think some districts are looking to put heavy money into mentoring, which is why this came up.
I think that why it came up is because there's so much going
Yeah,
on with
but-
kids
'cause they
in
wanna do it.
schools with violent acts and different things that they feel that they would like to do what they can to help.
So was this distributed at the school board's meeting with Letitia at Ridgefield Park? Like, is this Ridgefield, is this where this kind of is coming from? The superintendent there has done a lot with, their mentoring is just matching students up with teachers so that every student in the school has someone they're comfortable with. Mentoring, they're defining even as matching an older kid with a younger student.
Right.
So everyone has a connection.
But this is talking about putting money into it. So
No,
that's a different program.
Where is it talking
they're-
about putting money into it?
It's basically saying that we agree with mentoring, however, we need the state to help us
Well,
make it
what they're saying-
sustainable. So
what
they
they're
want us
saying-
to pay for it. So that means there's cost involved. That's basically what they're saying. So that's my point when.
Well,
because it says
maybe
we
places
rest
like-
with sustainable funding to further mentoring programs. So basically, we're asking the state to put a line in for mentoring programs, whereas some districts need heavy, heavy mentoring programs and others do not. And all the districts are going to end up paying for it because we're going to lose something somewhere else.
Can I ask a question? So what do we expect the outcome would be if we do end up approving this, right? What is kind of the next step?
It just goes to Murphy and the legislature, and then they see the pulse of the districts, and then they'll discuss it. They're going to do what they want anyway, but at least they have a background as to what the districts are thinking about it.
But what is our expectation out of that discussion? Like, are we expecting that some monies would be assigned to schools in order to implement mentoring programs, specifically as it relates to,
Well, that's what they're asking
This
for. They're asking
program,
for
right.
sustainable funding.
right?
That's what they're saying we strongly support mentoring and we want the state to provide some funding.
Right. But before we decide to vote on something like this, I think we do need to assess the needs of our own school district, right? Because, why would we want to endorse this if we didn't have very compelling needs to ask for specific funding? So, I think we need some more research to arrive at that point, to bring it to the board. That's what I feel.
So I guess for now, we'll put it off for 2 weeks or until our next meeting, and then we can discuss again. Do you want to you want to look into anything, or do you have any thoughts?
Well, we're due for a culture and climate survey this year because we haven't done one in a while. And one of the number one questions you ask on a culture and climate survey is there someone that you could go to in the school if something was bothering you? And that's what this is really getting at for me, because we're not looking for huge community mentors to mentor us to, the workforce. We're looking for, do you feel safe and do you feel like you have connection at Oradell Public School, whether that's a student, a staff member, whatever. But I don't think I can do that survey in the next 2 weeks. I mean, I could do a very quick informal survey.
As a
but-
superintendent, do you think people in this building feel safe going to someone in the district? I thought we have discussed this before, and I thought people
I mean,
did feel safe
in the
going to
past,
people.
all of our surveys have shown, yes, you'll get 1 of 2 students in a grade level. It depends whether 1 or 2 students is okay statistically, and that's your decision.
Essentially,
Well, hiring a mentor is not going to.
not hiring.
Not going to guarantee.
You're not hiring.
You're not
You're-
hiring.
So what some mentoring programs do, if you have a student who doesn't feel a connection and you suddenly think a male PE teacher is going to be their connection, then that male PE teacher stops by in the morning and says, hey, have a great day today.
Right, but this program is going to give funding, so
I would predict that funding is in the form of grants one can apply for. So we see grants for climate change right now, really big in the state. I would think you will see some grants that districts can apply for mentoring. Ridgefield actually uses their Title III funds for their mentoring program, which might even be something we would want to do because that is a pot of money we often struggle with how to spend.
I'll check with Ridgefield Park and see if I can get any more information from them.
do it.
It also says in the second paragraph that they passed a law in New Jersey that each school will have a school-based threat assessment team. Do we have one?
We have that.
Okay.
Any other old or new business? Mr. Griffin?
I know it was mentioned earlier, but the Odyssey of the Mind team, I got to go judge. It was amazing. And I really hope that they come and perform for you guys or present. I don't know what the right thing is. You know, it's like the ultimate version of STEAM, in my opinion, the integration of science, technology, engineering, and math, and all of that. It's really amazing what they do. These kids have done some incredible work they do every year, but it was my first time attending. So I just wanted to congratulate all the parents, all of the students, all the staff that were involved with that. They're doing a great job. So
They'll be here.
they'll be here at some point, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Be here.
They usually move right back down to Miss Sham's room for a little while, but right before a tournament, they will move to the gym and do full work run-throughs. So when that happens, I will send the board an email, because if, they don't ever say if, they say when they qualify for Worlds. They don't always bring all their props back. So that's actually a great opportunity to see it, because they typically have taken to driving their props out and flying back, so they have to leave stump. And when you go to Worlds, there are huge dumpsters full of these things that people have worked on for weeks and months, and like children are throwing them away, and it's quite the moment.
Did you see Oradell perform?
I watched a video of Oradell performing. I sat in a room with a lot of the other kids. So I got to understand the program as a whole, and then I got to see the videos of our kids too. So
You would be incredibly proud as a district. We have a rep. Like, we walk down the hallways and people are like, that's Oradell. They take this seriously up there. It's kind of cool. People, like, if they see Oradell's performing, like, other schools come into the room to watch.
Any other old or new business?
Have we discussed with the middle school as to continuity related to the Odyssey program?
Well, the middle school principal, a little known fact is, used to be the assistant principal of J.P. Stevens High School in Edison, which is the largest Odyssey program in the state. So when I spoke to him last year, he said it is definitely on his radar. He said, I just couldn't take it on my first year. While we sent 2 teams, and River Edge sent 5, none of their teams qualified for the state, so like they're still a little newer in this. But if some of those students want to continue also, the middle school really has some pushing, driving force behind them. So tomorrow night at the PTA's, Jack Curry, speaker, the middle school principal, I rumored was going to be here, so we'll get into Mr. Urbanovich's ear again.
Any other old or new business? Mrs. Norian?
I just wanted to note, I got a letter today, I'm sure everybody else got a letter saying that Riverdale has appointed their new superintendent to start in June. I'm just trying to see where it is. It'll be easy.
July 1st,
July 1st, but I'm trying to find his name.
from Wallington.
It's Dr. James Albro.
Yeah.
Dr.
I
Albro's.
couldn't remember.
Yeah, he's also the next president of the Bergen County Superintendents Association.
Aha. Okay.
Yes, he's been superintendent in Wallington for 8 years, so he brings significant experience to the position.
Any other old or new business? Any need for a closed session? Oh, yeah, before we go to closed session, if we need a closed session, we need to change our next meeting because it was next week, but we don't want to meet next week. When are our next ones on our calendar, Mr. Marmara? The 22nd and the 19th.
Oh,
So could we do the 29th and the 19th? Do we have to meet the 26th? Why do we need the 26th? Oh, can't be just before, then it has to be then? Okay, so the April 19th meeting, I guess we'll move to April 26th for the budget. Is that okay with everybody first?
April 25th.
April 26th. So then, I don't know. I know. So, what does the board want to do? I mean, we can meet again next week, but I don't think there's any need for it. So we can either move the 22nd to the 29th or the 12th.
12th.
The 12th is going to put us at another month waiting. Do we have anything going on for the next 2 weeks that we need to meet for?
The only thing I could think of is we might need to retroactively approve a workshop or two, because that's a long wait, but
Yeah.
that's not,
That's why I
you know.
wondered.
So we're doing 2 in April, 2 meetings in April, the 26th.
The 26th is one, and we can do the 12th, or if people want to move just to 2 weeks from tonight, but it doesn't sound like we need one, so it's up to the board.
I have a question.
Our next meeting
Mrs. Needham?
scheduled is what, 22nd?
Yeah, Mrs. Needham?
Yeah, the outcomes of the policy meetings, the policy committee meetings, would we not need to approve those within the next 2 weeks?
That's a good point. Do you need them approved to get them in? You don't need HIB in?
I don't, either way, April 26th is going to be the second meeting,
It's not
I know,
here.
but you don't need it by a certain time?
but
of
either,
these?
it won't change it.
Okay.
Because
the
if you do it
second
first reading, whether you do the first reading on the 29th or the 12th, it won't
True.
matter. Your second reading's going to be on the 26th.
Okay, so would we want the first reading by the 12th? Or would we want it sooner, is the question.
I don't think that matters so much. You think there's going to be a lot of discussion?
I don't know.
When does the budget have to be presented? What days?
I believe it's April 24th to May 4th.
Oh, so we have till May 4th? When's our next meeting after April, whatever? What are our May meetings?
I see May 10th.
So you can't
10th and
present,
the
you can't
24th.
present early?
It has to be in that time frame,
Okay, so what are our May meetings?
the 10th and the 24th.
Okay.
Your meeting is what? the
All right, so do we want to
22nd?
meet the 29th or the 12th? That's the question.
I vote for the 12th.
3 weeks from now.
The 5th isn't an option, you say?
Because we're this spring break.
Well,
So what dates we have? 22nd in March?
So we want to move next week's meeting, because we don't want to meet next week. It's no need.
I don't even have that on my list of meeting dates.
29th sounds good.
Do I have the wrong list again?
I took his,
I have
Calendar,
March
too.
8th. We switched it to March 15th, right? March 22nd.
Yeah, so that's, we're talking about moving next week.
November.
Okay. And you want to move that
So
backwards
is everyone
or
good to
forwards?
moving it to April 12th? Not forwards. Oh, yeah, forwards.
Yeah.
Forwards. Is everyone good for the 12th?
not to the 29th.
It doesn't sound like we have a need unless, we could do 2 more meetings. We can do it then if we want to meet for policy. We can
I
do
just
2
can't
meetings.
meet on the 29th.
Okay.
But you can meet. Sure you can.
Okay, so we're going to.
I mean, we can always do the
April 12th.
29th and the 12th. It's fine. Normally, we have 2 meetings a month. It's whatever you guys want to do.
So we'll have the 12th.
What do you guys, what do you do?
I think the 12th is fine.
Or 12th.
We're going to add in
The 12th is okay, Mrs. Walker? 12? We're good with the 12th? Okay. And then if we find we need
April
one ahead, we
12th,
can do
yeah.
it.
And what 29th?
April 12th and April 26th.
That's good for me.
Okay.
Yeah,
First date that we can do it.
So can we advertise that?
April 12th, instead of March 22nd? Okay. It's good, we went into the right month.
All right. Any need for a closed session?
I move to a closed session.
You need a closed session?
Do we?
I don't know. I asked if anyone needed a
Oh, I
closed.
thought you said before we go into a closed
Oh, no,
session.
no, no, no. I
before.
said, does anyone have a need for a closed session?
Well, I have a question about some residency stuff. I don't think we closed on that, did we? Can we do that real quick? Yeah.
Okay. We can't do it out here.
Okay. To go to closed, I'll second it.
Do we have subjects
So
to
wait,
talk about?
do I have a motion for a closed session?
John?
Mr. Walsh, do I have a second?
Second is me.
Technically, we're supposed to take a thing, but all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we're going to closed session. We will not be taking any action afterwards.
April, April, April. April. That's a good month. My youngest is gonna be 50. On March 30th.
Ooh.
So, I don't like.
Did they get so